Can you imagine a few steps only, or beside a temple is just a brothel or a red light district just a few doors down? A place where strict cleanliness is imposed and even chewing gum is banned. On this video, we will talk about the dark side of Singapore.
This is the dark side of Singapore. Located at the tip of the Malay Peninsula, Singapore is one of only 3 city-states in the world. It's the smallest country in the Southeast Asian region, measuring only 734.3 square kilometers of land area. Despite its size, Singapore is the largest port in Southeast Asia and one of the busiest in the world thanks to its strategic location. Can you imagine walking through a temple and finding a brothel just a few doors down? That's the uniqueness of Singapore's Geylang area, where the red light district is mixed with holy temples. Geylang has the highest concentration of both brothels and religious institutions in Singapore. The juxtaposition of nightlife entertainment and old religious sites is jarring to see, especially when it's at night and bright pink neon signs are starting to light up, and other establishments catering to the world's oldest profession. You'll also encounter several local shops selling a selection of stimulants. How did Geylang develop into its controversial state? Geylang became a cultural hub by the early 20th century, populated by people of diverse backgrounds. They established businesses and places of worship to settle down. But how did it become a red light district? Some say it started in the 1960s, when Chinese refugees settled in the area. Lacking job opportunities, they resorted to doing the oldest profession in the world. The nightlife trade grew and became more organized, recruiting more women from diverse backgrounds. When the government tried to crack down on these illegal establishments, they pushed the industry even further underground. It became even more difficult to regulate, forcing the government to make a compromise, make Geylang the only red light district on the island. Now, aside from being a red light district, the area is still a refuge for most low-wage migrant workers.
Some cultures embraced flower power during the 1960s, but the Singaporean government deemed hippie culture as negative influence. They were so swept up in the hippie hysteria that the government banned having long hair for men. The Prime Minister at the time, Lee Kuan Yew, stated that hippie culture tends to escapism, taking drugs, and incurring deleterious influences on the young generation. He saw how the flower power sensation afflicted maladies in several capital cities in the West, so he wanted to prevent it from ever entering Singapore. In its anti-hippie efforts, Singapore banned foreigners who resembled hippies from entering the country in April 1970. According to their standards, anybody who looks like a hippie with long, unkempt hair and beards will be presumed a hippie, unless proven otherwise. One American student was turned away by Singapore immigration officers when they were trying to enter the country through a Malaysian border. He had to go to a nearby barber and buy a new shirt and tie. Long hair raids were also done inside the country, where police scoured the streets to find men with long hair. For Singaporean males who were re-entering their country, they would be allowed to come in, but need to hand over their passports. After a haircut, they could redeem the passport. Men with long hair were also discriminated against in public services, banned from performing on stages or television, and least preferable to be hired. By the time in the 1980s rolled by, the long hair ban was eased up, partly due to the changing trend. In May 1993, the ban on several songs was lifted, showing another sign that the hippie ban was finally gone. Many felt that this was a violation of rights, but some were able to profit from the ban. The barbers, who often needed to stay open throughout the night to cater to Singaporean and foreign men. Long hair isn't the only thing that Singapore has banned. The nation is known as a fine city, a city-state with strict laws and regulations. There are plenty of rules and regulations here that you won't ever see anywhere else in the world. For example, chewing gum is banned in the country. The ban includes all gum substances, such as bubble gum and even dental chewing gums. This regulation arises because there were various problems in the 1980s created by chewing gum litter. Previously, vandals stuck chewing gum on door sensors of MRT trains, preventing doors from functioning and causing disruptions in train schedules. Another issue is leftover chewing gum in public areas like cinemas, parks, and housing estates, costing the House and Development Board 150,000 Singapore dollars to clean up. So the government decided to ban chewing gum in 1992, where those caught importing, selling, or manufacturing gum would be fined or given jail terms. Exceptions to the ban include nicotine gum and oral dental gum. Another weird ban that people may disagree on is using another person's Wi-Fi network. If you purposefully use your neighbor's Wi-Fi without letting them know, the government classifies that as hacking. You'll be fined a whopping 10,000 Singapore dollars and can face up to 3 years in jail. Jaywalking, smoking, vandalism, and urinating in public areas and not flushing the toilet is also a ban you might not be aware of. It's even said that elevators in Singapore are equipped with urine detection devices, UDD, that detect the scent of urine. Once the alarm is set off, the elevator doors will be closed until the police arrive to arrest the offenders. One thing that's synonymous with Singaporeans is they're all hard workers and busy. They're so busy that Singaporeans have the world's fastest pedestrian walkers, covering 19 meters in just 10.55 seconds. So you might want to take a step to the side when you walk the streets of Singapore because they might run you over. Aside from being busy, it might be due to Singapore's tendency to cater to pedestrians. So, the walkways are wide and comfortable to walk on. It's also supported by an extensive public transportation infrastructure, which makes walking a normal mode of transport from one point to another. On the other hand, Singapore is the most expensive country in the world to buy a car. For example, a standard Toyota Camry hybrid in Singapore costs 6 times more than the ones in the United States. That's because the country has anti-congestion measures and wants to focus on providing the best public transport for its citizens instead. Living a fast-paced life is not the only thing that Singaporeans are known for. They're also very competitive academically. According to a study by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, Singaporean students are among the most stressed in the world. They spend over 50 hours a week studying, from school straight to private tuition and homework. Pressure to perform from parents is very high, as they focus more on scores and grades. The government is now trying to find a balance between academic success and overall well-being. But changing the parents' minds will be a big challenge. One living proof of Singapore's superior academic achievements. Anon Salesh Kali, born in 1999. Kali was the youngest person to pass the GCE O-level when he was just 7 years old. According to his family, he began reading and writing when he was just 18 months old. He also gave his first public lecture at the age of 6 and scored his first film when he was just 12 years old. His intelligence has earned him accolades in various fields, and he's a young man who has accomplished more than most people. Kali has moved to Malaysia and is currently working on his PhD in chemistry, away from the limelight and living his life. If you only have several hours to visit Singapore, then you should just stay put in the airport. Singapore has the world's best airport, complete with over 400 shopping outlets, a swimming pool, a movie theater, and theme parks. One particular hotspot is the world's largest slide in Changi Airport's Terminal 3 Arrival Hall. The slide is a 12-meter, 4-story ride that people can try after accumulating 10 Singapore dollars from a Changi restaurant or retail establishment. Just a short walk from the slide, you'll also find the famous Shiseido Forest Valley, which houses the largest indoor waterfall in the Jewel Entertainment and Retail Complex. The forest valley itself is populated by more than 200 plants and shrubs and more than 1,000 trees. Once you come to the Shawnee Airport, there's a good chance you might never want to leave. But is there one reason to leave the airport? Singapore's world-renowned street food. The country is one of the only places where street food vendors receive Michelin stars, making delicious food affordable. You can easily walk to your nearest hawker centers to enjoy complex dishes that are influenced by its multicultural residents. Hawker centers are massive dining complexes with food stands that sell at very affordable prices. One food stand that received a Michelin star in 2016 is Hawker Chan, which also received the honor of having the cheapest dish on the Michelin list at only $2.25 per serving. Another food stand that received a Michelin star is the Hill Street Noodle Thai Hua Pork Noodle. But come early, because these stands get crowded very quickly. Some can even stand in line for over 5 hours just to get a cheap Michelin star dish. Although the country is known for its diverse ethnicities, oddly enough, cross-cultural dating is somewhat frowned upon in Singapore. The country has 3 main ethnicities: Indian, Chinese, and Malay. Each ethnicity has its own set of beliefs, family values, and communication style or language, which explains why most parents prefer their kids to marry within their race. Both families may fall into disagreements over cultural differences. Often, one party needs to compromise and adopt the other's culture or religion. For example, a Chinese Singaporean man was asked to convert to her Malay Singaporean girlfriend's religion. In turn, his family was shocked and asked him to find another woman. This also applies to foreigners, such as Western-born people, who seek to have a relationship with a Singaporean. It should be known that the stereotyping done by older generations is not due to malicious intentions, but more about being unfamiliar with other cultures. Parental approval might come afterward if the couple helps them to get to know each other's cultures and families. Aside from family approval, they might also have issues when registering their children's race after birth. In Singapore, every child is required to be listed as a certain race. Most people generally list a child's race based on his or her father, but some mixed couples wish that a more diverse option is available to acknowledge the parentage from both sides. While many countries are drowning and shrinking, Singapore is growing thanks to land reclamation. Due to its diminutive size, Singapore reclaimed around 75 kilometers square of land, costing US $15. Nearly 25% of the country's landmass is man-made, and the government is not stopping anytime soon. A new project is commencing called the Long Island Project, where the country will be creating 3 new tracts of land double the size of the Marina Bay area or equal to 1,142 football fields. This comes at a cost though, as there are many concerned about the environmental impact of the project. Some believe that the sand used to reclaim the land was gained unethically through sand smuggling, using invasive methods like sand dredging that can destroy the marine environment. Nearby countries are also concerned with land development, as it could affect their coastlines and territorial seas, threatening their sovereignty. On the other hand, the Singaporean government sees no other choice but to expand outward to cater to its growing population. Hopefully, the country and its neighbor can come to an agreement where no parties are being affected negatively. When you hear about landfill, your mind will go straight away to mountains of dirt and plastic waste. But that's not true for Singapore, because the country has a landfill island that's green and lush. Unlike typical landfills, Semakau Island is home to a healthy ecosystem home to various species of birds and insects. It's so clean and beautiful that the government decided to make it into a tourist attraction. Located 8 kilometers in the south of Singapore, the 350-hectare area is built to ensure garbage waste doesn't seep into the high seas. It's the only landfill in Singapore, and it supports Singapore's vision to become a clean and environmentally sustainable city-state. They managed to do this by incinerating their trash to ashes, reducing the volume of trash by approximately 90%. Another plus point of the process is that the combustion process drives turbines to produce electric energy. The leftover ash was then leveled with bulldozers and covered with soil. With time, grass and plants grow on the surface of the landfill and create green lands that attract rare species of birds and insects. Built in 1999, the landfill can hold up to 63 cubic meters of waste and is expected to be full by 2035. The government is currently trying to find ways to expand the landfill to avoid building another offshore area. With ingenuity, Singapore changes its incinerated trash into fertilizer instead of a nuisance. In some countries, clean water availability has become a new struggle, but Singapore is determined to avoid that. The country is so advanced that they can turn wastewater or sewage into drinking water. The government created a network of tunnels that collect wastewater from homes and businesses, which will then be fed into treatment centers. The reused wastewater now meets 40% of the country's water demand. Not only does it fulfill the needs of its citizens, but it also helps reduce ocean pollution. Because most Singaporeans are busy, they often employ foreign domestic workers or maids from poorer Asian countries. Sadly, Singaporeans tend to treat their foreign workers poorly. Usually, the employer will accuse their maid of a crime to prevent them from continuing to work in the country. Even if the report is a false report, they will still receive a police warning and be barred from future employment. When you walk around the streets of Singapore, you might notice that the country has virtually no homelessness. Singapore has the lowest rate of homelessness in the world and the highest rate of home ownership thanks to its housing policy and Housing Development Board (HDB). Starting in 1960, the HDB built 21,000 flats in the first 3 years, then 121,000 within a decade. Construction of new units stays steady, with 20,000 units per year being completed. Unlike other countries, Singapore keeps housing to a relatively affordable level. The government also provides housing grants for first-time buyers with low-level income. The HDB development is also integrated with its transportation system, making its citizens live much easier. Singapore is a fascinating country filled with contrasts and unique characteristics. From strict laws to innovative efforts, Singapore has shown its ability to thrive despite its tiny size. With ingenuity, the city-state has progressed in unexpected ways, setting itself as an example for its peers.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and tap the notification button for the latest updates. Exclusively on Epic Media.